Daniel checks his phone the same way he does every Sunday night, bracing for it. Rent due, credit card payment pending, that low balance alert he already knows is coming before he even unlocks the screen. 4 years later, Daniel checks his phone again. Same job, same apartment, almost the same life from the outside, but something has changed. There is no promotion, no lucky break, no sudden raise, just one account Daniel has spent 4 years building, quietly growing toward a number he once thought was impossible. $100,000. It changes how he negotiates at work, how he stops apologizing for asking for more, how he makes decisions without checking his balance first, and how he finally says no to opportunities he would once have accepted out of fear, unnecessary expenses, and expectations he no longer needs to carry. Before $100,000 makes Daniel feel rich, it makes him feel safe. 4 years earlier, Daniel is 28. He works in a job that pays the bills but never leaves much behind. He lives in an apartment he can technically afford as long as nothing goes wrong. From the outside, his life looks completely ordinary. Same coffee order every morning, same 15-minute commute, same complaints about traffic on a Friday afternoon. But there's a question that changes everything about how you see him. Ask Daniel one simple question. What happens if you lose your job tomorrow? His face shifts instantly. I don't even want to think about that, he says, half joking, half serious. Because he has thought about it. Late at night. More than once. Now picture his coworker Marcus. Same age. Same role. Their rent differs by less than $20. The difference between them is invisible. Marcus started saving and investing years earlier. Now he has $100,000 sitting in an account he rarely touches. Ask him the same question. What happens if you lose your job tomorrow? He just shrugs. I'd figure it out. And if someone asked you that question right now, which answer would sound more like yours? One afternoon, a rumor about layoffs spreads through the office. That night, Daniel lies awake calculating how many paychecks he has left. Marcus hears the same rumor over lunch. He thinks about it, but he doesn't panic. He finishes eating and goes back to work. From a distance, Daniel and Marcus look like two men living almost the same life. But underneath, they're living with two completely different levels of financial pressure. That's the wall Daniel doesn't know exists yet. It has nothing to do with what either of them can buy. It has everything to do with how much danger their minds are quietly expecting every single day. As a safety net grows, something starts to loosen. The mind no longer has to treat every surprise, a bill, a rumor, a bad week, like a 5-alarm emergency. Sleep may come easier. Decisions may feel less urgent. There's simply more room to think. Nobody talks about this part of wealth because it doesn't photograph well. There's no car in the driveway for it. No watch on the wrist. No caption-worthy vacation. It's just quiet. And that quiet may be one of the most valuable things money can create. Not luxury but buffer. Not status but silence in your own head. The number is different for everyone. For Daniel, it happens near $100,000 not because the number makes him wealthy, but because it finally gives him enough room for life to go wrong without everything falling apart. Daniel doesn't understand any of this yet. All he knows is that Marcus moves through the same stressful world a little differently. A little steadier. Like something Daniel can't see is quietly holding him up. He doesn't know yet that he's about to spend the next 4 years building that same thing for himself. And the day he finally crosses that wall, he feels something he hasn't felt in years. Control. The wall doesn't fall in one day. It cracks first, quietly, almost invisibly, on an ordinary Tuesday. Daniel is sitting at his desk when an email lands in his inbox. A recruiter, a different company. The salary is only 15% higher, but the role comes with real growth and a chance to actually negotiate for once. The old Daniel wouldn't have even opened it. Not because the offer was bad, because change itself felt too expensive. New job, new risk, and if it failed, he had less than 3 months of expenses saved to fall back on. But this time, something different happens. He opens the email. He actually reads it. He still isn't close to $100,000, But over the past few months he has built enough of a buffer that one bad month no longer feels like the end of everything. The small cushion he's built and the belief that he can keep growing it makes what if this doesn't work out feel a little less terrifying. That night Daniel opens his laptop, not out of anxiety this time. He opens a spreadsheet Marcus once showed him, the one he'd ignored for months, and for the first time writes down every number he's been avoiding. Rent, debt, what's actually left over at the end of the month. It isn't much, but it's honest. He starts asking questions he used to avoid. What if I saved consistently, instead of waiting to see what was left over at the end of the month? What if I actually negotiated my salary this time, instead of just accepting whatever number they offer? What if I stopped saying yes to unpaid overtime just because I was afraid of disappointing people? None of these questions feel reckless. They feel, for the first time, like choices, not gambles. You've been staring at that email for 10 minutes, Marcus says, walking past his desk. You know you're allowed to ask what you're worth. Daniel just shrugs, not sure how to explain it yet, that the difference isn't in his paycheck. It's that for the first time, his mind isn't fully occupied by the next thing that could go wrong. Over the next few weeks, small things start to shift. On the same commute, he starts listening to a podcast about investing instead of scrolling to distract himself. Instead of avoiding his banking app, he starts checking it with an actual plan. For years, Daniel made defensive decisions. He stayed in jobs he had outgrown, avoided asking for more, and kept cash sitting still because losing even a small amount felt worse than missing out on potential growth. Now slowly his decisions start pointing somewhere else entirely, toward a career he could actually grow in, a financial cushion he could trust, and choices that didn't depend on his next paycheck. For the first time, Daniel realizes staying exactly where he is, familiar but financially fragile, is also a choice, and it has a cost. One evening, he opens his banking app and transfers his first $100 into an account he labels $100K. Not because he thinks $100 will change his life. Because he's finally tired of waiting to feel ready. The first month is the hardest. Daniel sets up an automatic transfer, $200 every payday, moving straight into the account labeled $100K before he can touch it. It feels small, almost pointless. After 4 weeks the number barely moves, $400 sitting where nothing used to sit. He almost turns it off twice. But he doesn't. 3 weeks later, Daniel walks into the recruiter's final call with a number in his head, not the one they offered but the one he actually wants. His hands are sweating before the call even starts. I appreciate the offer, he says, his voice steadier than he feels. But based on the scope of this role, I was expecting something closer to 8% higher. Silence on the line for a second too long. Then let me see what I can do. 2 days later they say yes. It isn't a life-changing number, but it's the first time Daniel has ever asked for more and actually gotten it. That single sentence, let me see what I can do, replays in his head for days because it proves something he didn't know before. The number companies offer is rarely the number they're willing to pay. With the raise, Daniel doesn't upgrade his apartment or lease a new car. He raises his automatic transfer instead from $200 to $350. Nobody notices. There's no visible change to his life. Same coffee, same commute, same apartment. But the account labeled $100K is no longer just a symbol. It's actually growing. 6 months in, it crosses $8,000. Daniel checks the number more than he'd like to admit, not out of anxiety this time, but something closer to disbelief. Then, in month 7, his car breaks down. A transmission repair he didn't budget for, $1,200 he doesn't have sitting around anywhere else. Old Daniel would have put it on a credit card and quietly panicked for weeks. New Daniel pulls the money straight from the account he's been building, pays the mechanic, and doesn't think about it again for the rest of the day. That night, sitting in his apartment, something clicks that no spreadsheet ever taught him. The money in that account isn't just a number anymore. It's a decision he already made in advance so that the version of him dealing with a bad day doesn't have to make a harder one. He doesn't celebrate it, he doesn't post about it. He just goes to bed, and for the first time in years, a $1,200 problem doesn't cost him a night of sleep. Progress, Daniel is starting to learn, doesn't look like a finish line. It looks like a Tuesday where nothing bad happens because he already built the thing that would have caught him if it had. He's still nowhere near $100,000. But for the first time, the gap between where he is and where he's going doesn't feel like a wall anymore. It feels like a matter of time. By month 10, Daniel's account has crossed $22,000, helped along by a signing bonus from the new job. He'd almost spent it on a vacation before deciding to put most of it away instead. He notices something strange when he checks the numbers that month. Over the past 3 months, he's deposited around $2,100, but the account has grown by nearly $2,400. He stares at the screen for a moment, doing the math twice. The extra money doesn't come from his paycheck. It comes from nowhere he can see, just the market doing something quiet in the background while he is at work, at the gym, asleep. This is the part nobody explained to him properly before. For 10 months, growth has only ever meant one thing: what he personally puts in. Now, for the first time, Daniel sees that growth doesn't always have to come only from his next paycheck. It isn't dramatic, it's not a windfall, but it's the first proof that the money itself has started pulling a little of its own weight. Then in month 12, the market turns. Over several difficult weeks, Daniel watches his account slide down almost $1,800. His stomach tightens the same way it used to on Sunday nights 4 years ago. He almost sells. He actually opens the app, finger hovering over the button, ready to pull everything back into cash where it feels safe. Then he remembers something Marcus told him months earlier, half joking over lunch: if you only trust the market when it's going up, you don't really trust your plan. Daniel closes the app instead. He doesn't check it again for 11 days. When he finally looks, the account is still below where it was, but Daniel notices something more important than the number: he didn't panic. Over the following months, the account gradually climbs back, not because of anything Daniel did and not because he stopped it from falling either. His job was never to control the market. His job was to control what he contributed and whether fear got to make the decision instead of him. That stretch becomes the quiet turning point of his entire year. Not the growth, not the raise, the moment he learns to sit still while his money does something uncomfortable. By month 14, his automatic transfer has grown again, now $400 a payday, without him remembering exactly when he raised it. It stopped feeling like a sacrifice. It's just what happens before he sees his own paycheck, the same way rent happens, the same way taxes happen. Between his contributions, the recovered market, and a small tax refund he adds without hesitation, the account crosses $38,000. Daniel isn't tracking every dollar out of anxiety anymore. He checks it now the way someone checks the weather, mildly curious, not afraid of what he'll find. His coworkers still see the same guy, same desk, same lunch order. Nobody at the office knows what Daniel has quietly built in 14 months: more financial cushion than he ever believed he could build. He doesn't tell anyone the number, not because he's hiding it, but because, for the first time, the number isn't for anyone else to see. It's proof he's building for himself, one ordinary Tuesday at a time. He's not at $100,000 yet. But for the first time, he isn't doing all the climbing alone anymore. Some of the progress now comes from the money he's already put to work. By the end of his 4th year, the mornings start to feel the same. Daniel wakes up, makes coffee, checks his phone out of habit, not fear, just habit now. He opens the account labeled $100K the way he does most mornings. $99,840. He blinks at the number for a second, sets the phone down, and gets ready for work like nothing happened. 2 days later, on an ordinary Thursday afternoon, sitting at the same desk, drinking the same coffee, Daniel refreshes the app one more time. $100,220. He doesn't scream, he doesn't call anyone, he doesn't even stand up. He just sits there for a moment, looking at a number that used to feel like a fantasy reserved for other people, people with better jobs, richer families, luckier breaks. It's just him, a better salary, and the same ordinary life. 4 years of automatic transfers, one negotiated raise, a signing bonus, a promotion he didn't see coming, a market drop he didn't panic through, and 100 small decisions nobody ever saw. Marcus notices him staring at his screen. "You good?" Daniel almost tells him, then he just smiles and says, "Yeah, I'm good." Because here's what nobody warned him about: the moment itself, it doesn't feel like winning. It feels quiet, almost anticlimactic. No confetti, no fireworks, just a number on a screen that represents 4 years of choosing differently, one payday at a time when nobody was watching. That night, alone in his apartment, the same apartment, because he never needed his lifestyle to grow as fast as his income, it finally hits him not as a number but as a memory. He thinks about the version of himself who used to check his phone every Sunday night, bracing for bad news. That version of Daniel would not believe this one exists. Same person, same city, same apartment even. But something fundamental underneath has completely rearranged itself. He isn't rich, not by any real definition, but with some of it sitting in cash and the rest quietly working in the background, an emergency no longer feels like a threat. A job loss doesn't feel like a free fall. A bad month doesn't cost him a night of sleep. The money doesn't make him fearless, it makes him something better: steady. And here's the part that matters more than the number itself. Daniel doesn't become a different person the day he crosses $100,000. He becomes this person the day he stops waiting to feel ready and starts paying his future self first. The number is just proof. It arrives last, after the identity has already changed. If Daniel's story feels familiar, hit like. It helps this video reach someone who might be standing exactly where Daniel stood 4 years ago. And subscribe, because the next story begins where this one ends. What happens when your first $100,000 starts building the next one for you? He's not done building. But for the first time, he isn't building alone. A year after crossing $100,000, Daniel sits at the same desk on an ordinary Tuesday and does something he never used to do. He does the math on his own future. Not out of anxiety, out of curiosity. If he keeps contributing the way he has been, automatically, quietly, without needing willpower to show up every payday, the same account that took 4 years to reach its first 100,000 won't need another 4 to reach its second. Compounding doesn't care how long the first climb took. It only cares what happens next. That's the part almost nobody tells you at the beginning, because it sounds like a lie until you've lived it. The first $100,000 is the hardest one you'll ever build. Not because the math is harder, because you're building it with no help, no market gains worth mentioning, no momentum, just raw, unglamorous discipline month after month, with almost nothing to show for it until suddenly there is. Every dollar after that first 100,000 has something working alongside it that the first dollars never had. Daniel didn't know that 4 years ago. He just knew he was tired of Sunday nights spent bracing for bad news. He still isn't the guy with the sports car or the watch people notice. His coworkers still see the same desk, the same coffee order, the same ordinary life. Nobody at the office knows what he's built. And these days, that's exactly how Daniel likes it, because the number was never for anyone else to see. What changed wasn't his lifestyle. It was the quiet math running in the background of every decision he makes now: the confidence to negotiate, the room to take a risk, the ability to absorb a bad month without it becoming a bad year. If there's one thing Daniel would tell the version of himself who almost didn't open that recruiter email 4 years ago, it's this: you don't need to feel ready. You just need to start before you feel ready and let time do what willpower can't. The wall he once thought was permanent, the one separating people like him from people like Marcus, it was never really a wall at all. It was just a habit, repeated long enough to become identity. He's not chasing a number anymore. The number is only ever proof of something that has already happened inside him, one automatic transfer at a time. If Daniel's story reminded you of someone, maybe even yourself, that's exactly the point of telling it. Hit like if it landed, share it with someone who needs to hear that the hardest part is usually already behind them. And subscribe, because next time we follow Daniel from his first 100,000 to his first 500,000, and the habits that quietly make the second climb faster than the first. Same person, same city. Just building with momentum instead of alone.